The quaint countryside of Bavaria held a dark secret. In the heart of this idyllic region, a young woman named Anneliese Michel became an unwilling vessel for something sinister. Her story, a chilling tapestry of faith, madness, and alleged demonic possession, would send shockwaves through the world. Anneliese's ordeal, marked by 67 terrifying exorcisms, continues to fascinate and horrify, blurring the line between religious fervor and the depths of human despair. Born into a devout Catholic family, Anneliese's life was steeped in religious observance. From a young age, she grappled with the weight of her family's unwavering faith, a pressure that intensified as she matured. At 16, her world began to unravel. Seizures, once easily dismissed as epileptic episodes, grew increasingly violent and bizarre. Anneliese's behavior became erratic, her once bright spirit clouded by a darkness that medicine seemed powerless to combat. As Anneliese's condition worsened, her family, clinging desperately to their faith, sought solace in the church. They believed that their daughter, their beloved Anneliese, had fallen prey to a force beyond human comprehension: demonic possession. What followed was a harrowing ordeal, a series of exorcism rituals that plunged Anneliese further into the abyss of her torment. For months, she endured these terrifying rites, her body and mind pushed to the brink. The Michels, convinced that their daughter was locked in a battle for her soul, placed their trust in the hands of the church. However, as Anneliese's suffering intensified, doubts began to creep in. Was this truly the work of the devil, or was something far more sinister unfolding? Anneliese's story, forever etched in the annals of the macabre, continues to ignite debate, challenging our understanding of the human psyche and the nature of evil itself. Anneliese Michel's story is a stark reminder of the enduring power of belief. In a world where reason and science often collide with the inexplicable, the question of demonic possession remains a subject of intense fascination and controversy. Was Anneliese a victim of her own mind, ravaged by mental illness, or was she truly tormented by forces beyond our realm of understanding? Her case, shrouded in ambiguity, continues to divide skeptics and believers alike. The exorcisms performed on Anneliese were nothing short of harrowing. Eyewitness accounts paint a chilling picture of a young woman in the throes of unimaginable torment. Her voice, contorted and guttural, spewed blasphemies, her body racked with convulsions. The priests, armed with their faith and ancient rituals, battled tirelessly against the entity they believed had taken root in her soul. But as the exorcisms continued, Anneliese's physical condition deteriorated at an alarming rate. Despite the priest's unwavering belief in demonic possession, medical professionals offered a different perspective. They argued that Anneliese's symptoms were consistent with epilepsy and psychosis, treatable conditions that were tragically ignored in favor of spiritual intervention. The clash between these two opposing viewpoints, faith versus science, fueled a firestorm of controversy that raged long after Anneliese's untimely death. Anneliese Michel's story serves as a cautionary tale, a reminder of the fine line that separates faith from fanaticism. Her tragic fate, a testament to the devastating consequences of untreated mental illness, continues to spark debate about the role of religion in mental health care. Was Anneliese a victim of demonic forces, or was she failed by a system that prioritized belief over reason? The answer, like the nature of evil itself, remains elusive. Anneliese Michel's story is not merely a tale of horror. It is a human tragedy. It is the story of a young woman failed by those who should have protected her, her suffering amplified by a society grappling with the complexities of faith and reason. This documentary delves into the heart of this chilling case, examining the events that led to Anneliese's tragic demise and the enduring questions that continue to haunt us today. Through interviews with experts, archival footage, and dramatic reconstructions, We will explore the cultural and religious context that shaped Anneliese's life and death. We will hear from psychologists and psychiatrists who offer insights into the nature of mental illness, challenging the notion of demonic possession with scientific explanations for Anneliese's disturbing behavior. We will also speak with theologians and religious scholars, providing a nuanced understanding of the Church's role in this complex and controversial case. Anneliese's story is not an isolated incident. It serves as a stark reminder of the dangers of religious extremism and the importance of seeking appropriate medical care for mental health issues. By shedding light on this tragic case, we hope to foster a dialogue about the intersection of faith, mental health, and the human condition. Join us as we journey back to the heart of Bavaria to uncover the truth behind the 67 exorcisms that consumed Anneliese Michel's life. Prepare to be captivated, disturbed, and ultimately moved by a story that continues to resonate with audiences around the world. Anneliese Michel was born into a world steeped in Catholicism. In the rural German village of Klingenberg, faith was not merely a Sunday ritual. It was the lifeblood that coursed through the community. The Michels, a deeply devout family, embraced their faith with an unwavering fervor that permeated every aspect of their lives. Their home, a modest abode nestled amidst the rolling hills of Bavaria, served as a sanctuary where prayers echoed as often as laughter. Anneliese, the eldest of 4 daughters, grew up immersed in this world of piety and religious observance. From a tender age, she attended Mass twice a week, her small hand enveloped by her mother's as they navigated the pews of the village church. The air, thick with incense and the murmur of whispered prayers, was as familiar to her as the scent of her mother's freshly baked bread. Anneliese's childhood was, by all accounts, idyllic. A tapestry woven with the simple joys of rural life and the unwavering comfort of her family's faith. Yet, beneath the surface of this seemingly idyllic upbringing, there lay a current of rigidity. The Michels, devout to their core, adhered to a strict interpretation of Catholicism, one that frowned upon any deviation from their deeply ingrained beliefs. Anneliese, a bright and sensitive child, internalized these expectations, striving to be the epitome of piety and obedience. Her days were filled with prayer, religious study, and acts of self-denial, all performed with an earnestness that bordered on the extreme. As Anneliese blossomed into a young woman, the weight of these religious expectations grew heavier. The world outside Klingenberg, with its burgeoning counterculture and newfound freedoms, stood in stark contrast to the rigid confines of her upbringing. While her peers embraced the changing times, Anneliese remained tethered to the unwavering doctrines of her faith, a conflict that would have profound and ultimately devastating consequences. Anneliese's descent into darkness began subtly, a barely perceptible tremor in the foundation of her carefully constructed world. At the age of 16, while attending a strict Catholic boarding school, she experienced her first seizure. This incident, terrifying in its suddenness, was initially dismissed as a symptom of epilepsy, a diagnosis that seemed to offer a logical explanation for the terrifying episode. Yet, as time wore on, Anneliese's seizures grew increasingly violent and bizarre, defying the typical patterns of the neurological disorder. During these episodes, her body would contort into unnatural positions, her screams echoing through the halls of the school. Her eyes, once brimming with youthful exuberance, would roll back in her head, replaced by a vacant stare that sent chills down the spines of those who witnessed it. The once devout and obedient girl was now prone to fits of rage, her voice raspy and distorted, spewing words that seemed to belong to someone else, someone trapped within the depths of her being. Fear gripped the Michel family. Their daughter, their beloved Anneliese, was slipping away, her once bright spirit clouded by a darkness they couldn't comprehend. Doctors, consulted in a desperate attempt to find a medical explanation for Anneliese's deteriorating condition, were baffled. Despite rigorous testing and a battery of medications, her seizures persisted, their intensity increasing with each passing episode. Anneliese's once vibrant personality began to fade, replaced by a brooding silence, punctuated by moments of inexplicable terror. She spoke of seeing demonic faces leering at her from the shadows, their voices whispering blasphemies in her ears. Her sleep, once peaceful, was now plagued by nightmares, vivid and terrifying visions that left her trembling in their wake. The Michels, clinging desperately to their faith, began to suspect that a force far more sinister than epilepsy was at play. As Anneliese's condition worsened, her family found themselves caught in a maelstrom of fear and desperation. Their once idyllic life had been shattered, replaced by a relentless cycle of doctor's visits, hospital stays, and the crushing weight of their daughter's deteriorating mental state. The Michels, their faith unwavering, clung to the belief that Anneliese's affliction was not a medical anomaly, but a spiritual attack, a battle for her soul waged by unseen forces. The once vibrant young woman who had filled their home with laughter and joy was now a shadow of her former self. Her once lively eyes, now dulled with a perpetual fear, darted nervously around the room, as if searching for the source of her torment. Her speech, once articulate and thoughtful, was now often reduced to incoherent mumbles, punctuated by guttural growls and blood-curdling screams that sent chills down the spines of those who heard them. Despite the mounting evidence of Anneliese's deteriorating mental state, her family remained steadfast in their belief that her affliction was spiritual in nature. They sought solace in prayer, their voices echoing through the halls of their home, their pleas for divine intervention growing more desperate with each passing day. The walls of their home, once adorned with crucifixes and religious icons as symbols of comfort and protection, now seemed to mock their plight, their presence a constant reminder of the unseen forces they believed were tormenting their daughter. The Michels, their faith tested as never before, refused to accept the possibility that their daughter's condition was beyond the reach of God's grace. They clung to the hope that with enough prayer, enough faith, Anneliese could be delivered from the clutches of whatever darkness had taken hold of her soul. Their unwavering belief, while admirable in its steadfastness, would ultimately set in motion a chain of events with tragic and irreversible consequences. Desperate for a cure, the Michel family turned to the one source of comfort and guidance they had always known, the church. They sought out priests, their voices trembling with a mixture of hope and despair as they recounted their daughter's harrowing ordeal. They described her seizures, her blasphemous utterances, her claims of seeing demonic entities lurking in the shadows of their home, their pleas for help echoing the desperation that consumed their lives. However, their initial attempts to seek spiritual intervention were met with hesitation. The church, while acknowledging the possibility of demonic influence, was also acutely aware of the dangers of misinterpreting mental illness as spiritual affliction. Priests, while sympathetic to the family's plight, urged caution, advising them to continue seeking medical treatment for Anneliese, while offering prayers and blessings from a distance. The Michels, their faith unwavering, refused to accept this cautious approach. They believed that their daughter's condition was not a medical anomaly, but a spiritual attack, a battle for her soul waged by forces beyond the realm of human understanding. They argued that Anneliese's symptoms, while exhibiting characteristics of mental illness, were far too extreme, too bizarre to be explained away by medical science. Their pleas for help did not go entirely unheard. Word of Anneliese's affliction eventually reached Father Ernst Alt, a devout and deeply conservative priest known for his staunch belief in the reality of demonic possession. Father Alt, moved by the family's desperation and convinced of the veracity of their claims, agreed to meet with Anneliese to assess her condition and determine if a more direct form of spiritual intervention was warranted. This decision, made with the best of intentions, would have profound and ultimately tragic consequences, setting in motion a chain of events that would forever alter the course of Anneliese Michel's life. Father Ernst Alt, a man of unwavering faith and traditional beliefs, approached Anneliese's case with a gravity befitting his calling. He had heard the whispers, the stories of the young woman tormented, the family clinging to faith as their world crumbled. He entered the Michel home, a place where despair hung heavy in the air, with a heart burdened by the weight of expectation and the knowledge that his judgment carried profound implications. Anneliese, once a picture of youthful vitality, was now gaunt, her eyes reflecting a depth of suffering that chilled him to his core. She spoke in fragmented sentences, her voice a chilling rasp, her gaze darting around the room as if pursued by unseen tormentors. Father Alt listened intently, his brow furrowed in concentration as Anneliese described the demonic entities that haunted her waking hours and poisoned her sleep. He questioned her parents, their faces etched with a mixture of hope and fear, probing for details of her behavior, seeking any indication that what plagued their daughter was indeed the work of the devil. Father Alt, while a staunch believer in the reality of demonic possession, was not a man prone to rash judgments. He understood the gravity of such a diagnosis, the profound implications it held for Anneliese and her family. Days turned into weeks as Father Alt grappled with what he had witnessed. He prayed for guidance, seeking divine inspiration in his struggle to discern the truth of Anneliese's affliction. He consulted ancient texts, poring over accounts of demonic possession, searching for parallels to Anneliese's case. The lines between mental illness and spiritual affliction, often blurred, seemed to converge in her tormented existence. Father Alt, his heart heavy with the weight of his decision, arrived at a conclusion that would seal Anneliese's fate. Convinced that Anneliese Michel was indeed possessed, Father Alt knew he needed the Church's approval to proceed. The rite of exorcism, an ancient and controversial ritual, was not to be undertaken lightly. It required the express permission of a bishop, a man who carried the weight of spiritual authority and bore the responsibility for the souls under his care. Father Alt, armed with his observations and his unshakable belief in Anneliese's possession, approached the Bishop of Würzburg, Josef Stangl. He presented his case, detailing Anneliese's harrowing symptoms, her blasphemous utterances, her violent aversion to religious artifacts. All evidence, he argued, of a malevolent force holding sway over her soul. The bishop listened intently, his face etched with a mixture of concern and skepticism. The Church, while acknowledging the existence of demonic forces, had grown increasingly cautious in its approach to such matters. The specter of mental illness, once often misdiagnosed as demonic possession, loomed large in such cases. Yet Father Alt's conviction, his unwavering belief in Anneliese's plight, resonated with the bishop. After much deliberation, Bishop Stangl granted his permission, authorizing Father Alt to perform the rite of exorcism on Anneliese Michel. It was a decision made with the best of intentions, a desperate attempt to alleviate the suffering of a young woman and her family. However, it was a decision that would have far-reaching consequences, setting in motion a chain of events that would culminate in tragedy and ignite a firestorm of controversy that would engulf the Church and the world beyond. The Church, steeped in tradition and wary of hasty judgments, often appointed a devil's advocate in cases of suspected demonic possession. This individual, typically a priest or theologian with a skeptical mind, was tasked with scrutinizing the evidence, challenging the claims of possession, and advocating for alternative explanations, particularly those rooted in medical science. In Anneliese's case, the role of devil's advocate fell to Father Arnold Renz, a man known for his sharp intellect and his belief in the power of modern medicine. Father Renz, while acknowledging the possibility of demonic influence, argued that Anneliese's symptoms aligned with known mental illnesses, such as epilepsy, psychosis, and schizophrenia. He pointed to her history of seizures, her hallucinations, her erratic behavior, all classic signs of a mind in turmoil. Father Renz, a compassionate man, believed that Anneliese was not possessed by demons, but rather imprisoned by the confines of her own mind. He argued that she needed medical attention, not spiritual intervention, that her salvation lay in the hands of doctors and therapists, not priests and exorcists. He pleaded with Father Alt and Bishop Stangl to reconsider their decision to seek alternative treatments for Anneliese, to exhaust all other avenues before resorting to such a dangerous and controversial ritual. His pleas, however, fell on deaf ears. Father Alt, convinced of the veracity of his diagnosis, dismissed Father Renz's concerns as the misguided skepticism of a man blinded by science. Bishop Stangl, while sympathetic to Father Renz's arguments, ultimately deferred to Father Alt's judgment, swayed by the priest's unwavering belief and the Michel family's desperate pleas for help. The stage was set for a spiritual battle, a clash between faith and reason, with Anneliese Michel caught in the middle. On September 24th, 1975, the first of many exorcisms commenced in the Michel family home. The air, thick with incense and the weight of expectation, crackled with a palpable tension. Father Alt, armed with his faith and the authority of the Church, stood before Anneliese, his face a mask of grim determination. He was joined by Father Arnold Renz, his skepticism masked by a professional courtesy, his presence a testament to the Church's desire to proceed with caution, even as it embraced a ritual steeped in ancient beliefs. Anneliese, her frail body racked by tremors, her eyes wide with fear and confusion, was restrained by her parents, their faces etched with a mixture of hope and terror. The words of the rite of exorcism, ancient Latin pronouncements heavy with the weight of centuries, filled the room, their cadence both mesmerizing and unsettling. As Father Alt invoked the name of God, demanding the entity to reveal itself and relinquish its hold on Anneliese's soul, a guttural growl erupted from the young woman's throat. Her body contorted violently, her screams echoing through the small house, their intensity amplified by the palpable fear that permeated the room. Her parents, their grip on their daughter tightening, whispered prayers, their voices a desperate counterpoint to the cacophony unfolding before them. Father Alt, his voice unwavering, continued his pronouncements, his gaze locked on Anneliese, his faith unshaken by the terrifying display before him. He believed with every fiber of his being that he was witnessing a battle between good and evil, a struggle for the soul of a young woman caught in the crossfire. The exorcism, a ritual designed to banish demons and restore peace to the possessed, had begun, its outcome far from certain, its impact on Anneliese Michel and all those present eternally profound. The exorcisms, once a weekly ritual, increased in frequency as Anneliese's condition deteriorated. Father Alt, his resolve strengthened by the young woman's escalating torment, believed they were making progress, each terrifying display a sign of the demonic entity's desperate struggle to maintain its grip on her soul. The exorcisms, often lasting for hours, were grueling, a testament to the enduring power of faith and the depths of human suffering. Anneliese, her body weakened by malnutrition and the physical strain of the rituals, would thrash and convulse, her screams echoing through the small house. Her voice, contorted and guttural, would spew blasphemies, pronouncements of eternal damnation directed at the priests and her own family. Her eyes, once filled with youthful innocence, now burned with an unsettling intensity, reflecting a darkness that chilled all those present. Father Alt, unwavering in his belief that he was witnessing a true manifestation of demonic possession, pressed on with the rituals. He employed holy water, its touch eliciting violent reactions from Anneliese. her skin blistering as if burned by acid. He brandished a crucifix, the symbol of Christ's sacrifice. Before her, her screams intensifying, her body contorting in seeming agony as she recoiled from its presence. The exorcism sessions became a macabre spectacle, a terrifying blend of religious fervor and raw human suffering. The air, thick with incense and the stench of sweat and fear, crackled with a palpable tension. The witnesses, their faith tested by the horrors unfolding before them, clung to the belief that what they were witnessing was a necessary evil, a painful but essential step in the battle for Anneliese Michel's soul. As the exorcisms continued, Anneliese's physical condition deteriorated at an alarming rate. She refused food, claiming that the demons within her forbade it, her emaciated frame a testament to her self-inflicted starvation. Her once vibrant hair hung in lank, lifeless strands, her skin, pallid and drawn tight over her cheekbones, bore testament to the toll the rituals were taking on her body. Sleep, once a refuge from her torment, now offered no escape. She would writhe in her bed, her body racked by convulsions, her screams piercing the night, a chorus of agony that echoed through the small house. Bruises, dark and mottled, blossomed on her skin, the result of her violent struggles against the restraints used to subdue her during the exorcisms. Despite her frail physical state, Anneliese's spirit, however tormented, remained unbroken. She would speak with a chilling lucidity between bouts of demonic rage, expressing her unwavering faith, her belief that she was engaged in a spiritual battle for her soul. She would pray fervently, her voice a whisper against the backdrop of her torment, her words a testament to the enduring power of faith, even in the face of unimaginable suffering. The priests, witnessing her physical decline, found their resolve tested. Could this frail, tortured soul truly be a vessel for the devil, or were they witnessing the tragic unraveling of a young woman's mind? The line between faith and fanaticism, once clear, blurred with each passing exorcism, each terrifying display of Anneliese's torment fueling the fires of doubt and despair. As Anneliese's suffering intensified, doubts began to creep into the minds of those present, their faith shaken by the relentless brutality of the exorcisms. Even Father Alt, his belief in demonic possession unwavering, found himself questioning the wisdom of their actions, his heart heavy with the weight of Anneliese's suffering. Father Renz, his skepticism now hardened into a certainty that Anneliese was not possessed but desperately ill, pleaded with Father Alt to cease the exorcisms. He argued that her deteriorating condition was not a sign of the demon's power, but a clear indication that she needed medical attention, not spiritual intervention. Her emaciated frame, her fractured speech, her increasingly erratic behavior, all pointed to a severe mental breakdown, not a demonic possession. The Michel family, their faith deeply rooted, but their hearts torn by their daughter's suffering, found themselves caught between their unwavering belief in the Church's teachings and the horrifying reality unfolding before them. They had placed their trust in Father Alt, believing that he held the key to their daughter's salvation. But as the exorcisms continued, their hope dwindled, replaced by a gnawing fear that they had made a terrible mistake. The whispers of doubt, once hushed and hesitant, grew louder, fueled by the undeniable evidence of Anneliese's deteriorating condition. Were they witnessing a true manifestation of demonic power? Or were they complicit in a tragic misjudgment, their faith blinding them to the reality of a young woman's descent into madness? The question, heavy with moral implications, hung in the air, casting a long shadow over the exorcisms and the lives of all those involved. In a chilling testament to the horrors that unfolded in that small Bavarian home, audio recordings of the exorcisms were made, capturing the raw, unfiltered agony of Anneliese Michel's tormented existence. The tapes, filled with her blood-curdling screams, her guttural pronouncements, and the priest's insistent prayers and commands, paint a disturbing audio portrait of a young woman caught in the throes of a terrifying ordeal. The tapes also reveal a startling development. Anneliese, speaking in different voices, claimed to be possessed by multiple demonic entities. Each voice, distinct in its tone and mannerisms, identified itself as a notorious figure from biblical lore: Judas Iscariot, the betrayer of Christ; Nero, the Roman emperor infamous for his cruelty; and Cain, the first murderer, their voices a chilling chorus of evil emanating from her frail body. The priests, their faith unshaken by this revelation, believed they were witnessing a phenomenon known as legion, a reference to the biblical account of a man possessed by a multitude of demons. They saw it as confirmation of their diagnosis, proof that Anneliese was indeed engaged in a spiritual battle of epic proportions. The audio recordings, later transcribed and studied by theologians and paranormal investigators, remain a subject of intense fascination and debate. To some, they are chilling evidence of the reality of demonic possession, a terrifying glimpse into the abyss of human experience. To others, they are a tragic record of a young woman's descent into madness, her fragmented psyche giving voice to the horrors that consumed her mind. The tapes, like the exorcisms themselves, offer no easy answers, only a haunting echo of Anneliese Michel's tormented existence. Anneliese's faith, once her solace, became intertwined with her torment. She believed she was chosen by God to atone for the sins of the world, her suffering a necessary sacrifice in the battle against evil. This conviction, fueled by the intensity of the exorcisms and the pronouncements of the priests, became her reality, a chilling delusion that consumed her every thought. She would spend hours in prayer, her frail body kneeling on the cold stone floor, her voice a raspy whisper pleading for deliverance. Her pleas, once directed at a benevolent God, now seemed aimed at a deity who demanded suffering as proof of devotion. The line between faith and fanaticism, always thin, had vanished, replaced by a desperate, all-consuming belief in her own martyrdom. The priests, witnessing her unwavering faith, saw it as a sign of her resilience, her spirit unbroken by the demonic forces that tormented her. They encouraged her piety, seeing it as her greatest weapon in the battle for her soul. They failed to recognize the insidious nature of her delusion, the way her faith, twisted and distorted, had become a tool in the hands of her tormentors. The Michel family, their lives now revolving around the relentless cycle of exorcisms and their daughter's deteriorating condition, clung to the hope that her faith would ultimately save her. They prayed alongside her, their voices a chorus of desperate pleas, their hearts breaking with each tortured breath she took. They failed to see the price she was paying, the way her faith, once a source of comfort, had become a burden too heavy to bear. Section 2. A Descent into Darkness. Anneliese's world contracted, shrinking to the confines of her bedroom, a space transformed into a battleground for her soul. The walls, once adorned with crucifixes and religious icons, now seemed to press in on her, their presence a constant reminder of the unseen forces that tormented her. She saw demons lurking in the shadows, their eyes glowing with malevolent intent, their voices whispering blasphemies and threats. Her sleep offered no respite, her nights a terrifying tableau of vivid nightmares. She would wake screaming, her body drenched in sweat, her eyes wide with terror as she recounted her visions of hellfire and demonic torment. The line between reality and hallucination blurred, her waking hours indistinguishable from the nightmares that plagued her sleep. Her behavior became increasingly erratic, her actions dictated by the voices that commanded her, the entities she believed inhabited her soul. She would lash out violently, scratching, biting, and kicking at anyone who came near, her once gentle nature replaced by a feral desperation. The priests, armed with their prayers and rituals, saw her outbursts as further evidence of the demonic forces at work, their faith unshaken by the escalating violence. The Michel family, their love for their daughter stretched to the breaking point, struggled to cope, their hearts torn between their fear of her tormentors and their deep abiding love for the young woman she once was. Section 3. The walls close in. Anneliese's condition worsened, and the outside world seemed to fade away. The priests, firm in their belief in demonic possession, became her only comfort. The Michel family, isolated by their faith, retreated into their home, their world shrinking. The house, once a sanctuary, became a prison, echoing with Anneliese's cries. Medical help was shunned, seen as futile against a spiritual affliction. Doctors, dismissed by the family, could only watch helplessly. Anneliese, trapped in her delusion, was beyond medical reach. She was lost in her suffering, her cries for help unheard. Her fate was sealed by those who sought to save her. Section 4. The Last Rites. By the summer of 1976, Anneliese Michel was a shadow of her former self. Her body, skeletal from malnutrition, was a testament to her suffering. Her eyes, once vibrant, now reflected torment. Her voice, hoarse from screaming, was a chilling whisper. She spoke of being tormented by Lucifer, his presence suffocating. On July 1, 1976, Anneliese took her last breath. Her death sent shockwaves through the Bavarian countryside and beyond. The priests believed she died a martyr, her suffering a necessary sacrifice. The Michel family clung to the belief that she was finally at peace. The truth remained elusive, a haunting enigma. The once familiar rhythms of life in Klingenberg were shattered. The whispers and rumors were replaced by a heavy silence. The house, once a battleground, stood empty, its silence deafening. The community, once united, now grappled with a maelstrom of emotions. Some believed Anneliese died a martyr. Others whispered of madness. Questions now echoed through the village and the church. Had they been complicit in her death? Blinded by faith? The weight of these questions fractured the community's faith. Accusations, denials, and justifications filled the silence. The lines between belief and blame blurred, leaving the community divided. Anneliese Michel's death ignited a firestorm of controversy. The world demanded answers, seeking accountability for her suffering. The German legal system struggled with the complexities of faith and possession. The trial of Father Alt, Father Renz, and Anneliese's parents became a crucible. The prosecution argued Anneliese suffered from epilepsy and psychosis. They claimed her death was preventable, a result of neglect. The defense maintained she was possessed, their actions driven by faith. The courtroom became a battleground for opposing ideologies. Journalists, legal scholars, and onlookers watched the drama unfold. The jury deliberated, their verdict poised to reverberate far beyond the courtroom. The world watched, captivated by the unfolding drama. The jury reached a verdict in the case of Anneliese Michel. Father Alt, Father Renz, and Anneliese's parents were found guilty of negligent homicide. The verdict acknowledged both the sincerity of their beliefs and the tragic consequences. The priests, sentenced to 6 months in prison, maintained their innocence. Their conviction cast a long shadow over the Catholic Church. Anneliese's parents, spared a prison sentence, retreated into seclusion. The community of Klingenberg remained deeply divided. The verdict provided closure but left fundamental questions unanswered. Was Anneliese a victim of mental illness or truly possessed by demonic forces? Anneliese Michel's story continues to resonate decades after her death. Her grave has become a pilgrimage site for those seeking solace or understanding. Her story, the subject of countless books and films, remains a chilling reminder. The questions her case raised challenge our understanding of mental illness and faith. Anneliese's legacy is complex and multifaceted. For some, she is a symbol of religious extremism. For others, a martyr. Her story serves as a reminder of the enduring power of faith and the importance of compassion. Regardless of beliefs, Anneliese's story compels us to confront the complexities of faith and suffering. Anneliese Michel's story continues to haunt us decades after her death. The questions that echoed through Klingenberg remain unanswered. Was she a victim of mental illness or a captive in a spiritual battle? The truth remains elusive, debated, and deeply personal. The human mind, a labyrinth where science and spirituality collide, remains a mystery. Anneliese's story reminds us of the fragility of the human psyche. The questions surrounding her death challenge our understanding and compassion. In seeking answers, we honor her memory and strive for a world where suffering is met with compassion. Anneliese Michel's story has become a global phenomenon. Books, documentaries, and films have attempted to capture her story. The Exorcism of Emily Rose brought her story to a global audience. The film sparked renewed debate about faith, mental illness, and evil. The fascination with her story speaks to our primal fear of the unknown. It reflects our need to make sense of suffering and find meaning in chaos. Anneliese's legacy extends beyond the screen, influencing paranormal investigations and theological debates. Her case challenges our assumptions and forces us to confront the limits of our understanding. Anneliese's story is a stark reminder of the fine line between faith and fanaticism. Anneliese Michel's story is a reminder of the power of belief. Her family's faith was both a source of strength and a blinding force. The priests approached her case with conviction rooted in religious tradition. Their faith shaped their interpretation of her symptoms and fueled their determination. Belief shapes our understanding of the world, influencing our actions and destinies. It can provide comfort, but also lead to misjudgments and intolerance. Anneliese's story compels us to confront the complexities of belief. It urges us to examine our beliefs and ensure they are rooted in compassion. Anneliese's story reminds us of the responsibility we have to those who suffer. Anneliese Michel's story, a tragedy etched in the annals of our collective memory, serves as a haunting reminder of the importance of compassion, the need to approach suffering in all its forms with empathy and a commitment to understanding. Her ordeal, regardless of one's beliefs about the nature of her affliction, highlights the fragility of the human psyche and the vital need for a compassionate and informed response to mental health issues. The stigma surrounding mental illness, a pervasive and often destructive force, continues to prevent individuals and families from seeking the help they need. Anneliese's story, while extreme in its circumstances, serves as a tragic example of the devastating consequences of ignoring the signs of mental distress, of prioritizing belief systems over evidence-based treatment. Anneliese's legacy, though born of suffering, can serve as a catalyst for change, urging us to create a world where mental health is treated with the same urgency and compassion as physical health. It compels us to educate ourselves about the complexities of mental illness, to challenge the stigma that surrounds it, and to advocate for increased access to quality mental health care for all who need it. The darkness that enveloped Anneliese Michel's life, the questions that continue to linger in the aftermath of her death, should serve as a beacon, illuminating the path towards a more compassionate and understanding world. It is in honoring her memory, in learning from the tragic mistakes of the past, that we can strive to create a future where suffering is met with empathy, where mental illness is treated with dignity and respect, and where the light of compassion guides us towards a more just and humane world.